Normally, you would think that in a game based around keeping animatronics out of your office, closing the doors would probably be required at some point.
I respectfully disagree with those rules.
And on Monday, I tried to beat Five Nights at Freddy's without using the doors at all. Trust me when I say that things went very, very strangely. I'm sorry, Bonnie, but I need this money for my family. Naturally, I went into it with pretty much no plan to handle the fact that every single night, Freddy, Bonnie, Foxy, and Chica can arrive at your door, come into your office, and kill you. There is no way to keep them out of your office other than the doors. However, the beautiful thing about FNAF is that
if you set your mind to it, you can pretty much break it however you want.
Night 1 started off well. The animatronics are pretty inactive, so you basically just sit there and hope Bonnie or Chica don't arrive. Their AI is set really low, so the chance of them moving is also pretty low. It's entirely possible that you get through the entire night without ever encountering them. Even if you do, they might not get into your office until very late into the night, at which point you can probably just wait it out until 6 a.m. Just don't flip your cameras and they can't ever jump scare you. The only real threat is Foxy, who is activated at 3 a.m. on night 1. If you don't use your cameras enough, he will eventually come after you. In Phase 0, Foxy is hidden behind the curtains, and Phases 1 and 2 are just him becoming more visible. Phase 3 is where things become a little more complex. Foxy leaves Pirate's Cove, and one of two things can happen. If you click the left hallway camera while Phase 3 is active, you'll trigger Phase 4, during which Foxy sprints down the hallway at you. You need to shut the door before Foxy arrives, otherwise he'll enter Phase 5, which is his jump scare, and a game over. Alternatively, if you ignore the fact that Foxy has left and don't look at camera 2A after 30 seconds, Foxy will skip Phase 4 entirely and immediately try to enter your office. Damn it, Foxy, it was Bonnie, I was worried about Bonnie, not you, ugh. Fortunately, Foxy cannot change between his Pirate Cove phases while the camera is up. Thus, by looking at the camera about once every second, we can pretty reliably prevent Foxy from moving at all, taking care of him completely. Next is Freddy. Due to an exploit in the game's code, Freddy cannot ever enter your office if camera 4B is selected, even if you aren't looking at the camera panel. So by selecting that camera, we take care of Freddy and prevent him from ever entering our office. We have to flip it up every second or so to stop Foxy, but we don't need to be looking at Foxy to do that. We can keep it on cam 4B and handle both Freddy and Foxy. Bonnie and Chica are where things become complicated. They approach from their respective hallways, and when they show up at your door, the only way to prevent their entry is by closing it. While they don't beeline it to your office like Freddy, and they'll backtrack as they move throughout the pizzeria, once either of them enters your door, they won't leave if the door is open. There's no possibility that they backtrack into the hallways. All you can do is close the doors and wait until they leave, which sends Bonnie back to the dining room and Chica back to the east hallway. Once either of them show up at your door, they're guaranteed to enter your office in the next 5 seconds or so. You need to close the door. So if we're trying to play without doors, we're screwed, right? Well, not exactly. As mentioned before, Chica and Bonnie don't come straight to your office the way Freddy or Foxy do. They wander around the pizzeria and only eventually decide to pop in. Until they actually appear in your doorway, there's always a chance that on their next turn, they move away from your office. Thus, with enough luck, you could go the entire night without Bonnie or Chica ever arriving at your door. This was it. This was the strategy. Just play the game over and over until we got lucky enough and won. It was foolproof. I was going to conquer Five Nights at Freddy's with no doors. My strategy ended up being to use my cameras as much as possible after 3 a.m., then stop using them completely once Bonnie or Chica got into my office. Night 1, doorless, complete. Yo! Night 2 is where things began to fall apart. The FNAF AI is pretty simple. Every 5 seconds or so, an animatronic has a chance to move. Without getting into the details, the higher an animatronic's AI, the higher the probability that they move at any given turn. The enemy AI also increases as the night goes on, making things more complicated, and it's incredibly precarious for our doorless run. Night 2 alone increases the animatronic AI to the point that actually surviving without using any doors is astronomically unlikely. Beating all 5 nights like this is possible, but only in the same way that Dream's Minecraft speedrun odds were possible. As in, it's so extraordinarily unlikely, it simply does not happen. Yes, you could get crazy lucky and somehow pull it off, but it's so far outside the realm of reasonable probability that any statistician would call it virtually impossible. So we had hit a wall on night 2. Was the no-door FNAF challenge run going to end like this? No, that's not what AstralSpiff would do. He would make it work. He would use his immense game knowledge and cunning to devise a strategy, and I need to do the same thing. That's when it hit me. I needed a shotgun. I don't know what I was thinking when I left my shotgun behind. Now I'm unarmed and I'm about to die.
Is that the bite of 87? These 4 robots coming for me, I'm mad that I don't got one. I really wish that I had brought my shotgun before Chica had killed me, but now I shoot her in the face. I'm gonna blow the pizzeria up, I'm gonna get out of this place. Well, Bonnie tries to run and hide, but it's too late, I'm locked in. With my shotgun, you know I'll pop and drop 'em.
Where's that bunny rabbit looking motherfucker? Yo, stay out my office, I'll f you up.
Said that Sam's happened to be Ness.
Oh, this is the best part of the song, hang on. Oh, those arpeggios. Hey, you should subscribe to my channel. Thanks. Shotgun FNAF. This changes everything. No more did we have to cower before Bonnie and Chica when they leered into the doorway. No longer must we wait idly by whilst they sap our power, refusing to leave so that we can open up the goddamn doors. No more. Now, when Bonnie or Chica show up, you can greet them kindly with a face full of doom shotgun blast. With our shotgun at our side, I went for another go at night 2. This time it was effortless. I maintained the same strategy as before, but this time when Bonnie or Chica showed up at either door, I just blew them up with my shotgun. It was awesome. It doesn't kill them forever. Scott coded the animatronics so that if you shoot them with the shotgun, they just go back to their respective reset points, as if you'd closed the door on them and waited for them to leave organically. This way was way cooler though, because instead of waiting around for them to bounce, we could be the bouncer and just be like, bitch, get out my office. I breezed through nights 2 through 4 with the shotgun strategy. I was unstoppable. I was going to do it. I was going to beat FNAF without using any doors, the first person in the world to do it. No one could stop me, or so I thought.
Theft King.
Scott Cawthon, my old nemesis.
You shall not best the 5th night at Freddy's without the utilization of doors. It cannot be. My animatronic minions shall rend the flesh from your bones.
Yeah, well, I have a shotgun.
What?
Scott Cawthon activated his remote sabotage to try and stop me yet again, but this time I was ready. He sent Bonnie after me, and I blasted him to the other end of the pizzeria. He sent Bonnie after me again, and I shot him again. Surely frustrated, Scott sent Chica, the embodiment of his wrath, to my office. I blew her up with the shotgun. It was awesome. I laid waste to my animatronic foes, and I employed strategies I'd learned back in my glory days as a top 5 FNAF 1 speedrunner. None of the animatronics could stand before the might of the Doom shotgun. And just like that, it was over. The 5th night at Freddy's was no more. I had won. I had beaten 5 nights at Freddy's without ever using my doors, a truly monumental achievement that will be celebrated for eons to come. However, there was one final challenge, the most difficult challenge in all of FNAF, 420 mode. I took a deep breath. 420 mode was not for the faint of heart, but after eviscerating the bowels of my robotic enemies with a shotgun, neither was I. I fired it up and began. I employed the classic 420 mode strategy to deal with Foxy and Freddy, but when Bonnie or Chica showed up, I blasted them in the face with my shotgun, rather than closing the doors. This is actually a way better strategy, as the shotgun doesn't take any power. I don't really understand why FNAF players haven't used it up until now. I thought that victory was assured when suddenly the animatronics vanished. They were just nowhere to be found, other than Freddy, who was cam-stalled in the corner as usual. Perhaps Bonnie and Chica had had enough. Maybe they were tired of being relentlessly blasted with the Doom shotgun every time they approached the office. Maybe they just decided that it probably wasn't worth going after me anymore. Could it be that Scott had thrown in the towel? No, he was preparing for his final attack. Bonnie struck. I shot him in the face. Bonnie struck again. I shot him in the face again. Bonnie showed up for a 3rd time. I shot him in the face again. But then Chica showed up. I kept my cool though and quickly devised a plan. I was going to shoot Chica in the face. I aimed my shotgun at her through the window. This would surely cause some damage to the office, but now wasn't the time to worry about such things. Chica lunged for the entryway, mere inches from the office. I couldn't close the door, and if she got in, I'd never have another chance to shoot her in the face with my shotgun. It was now or never. I slid my cursor across the screen, right onto Chica's face, and I pulled the trigger. Chica's robotic corpse crumpled to the floor, lifeless. She was dead. However, my shotgun was not what killed her. Guns don't kill robots. Bullets kill robots. Guns just get the bullets going really, really fast. As the sun rose over Chica's mangled carcass, the familiar chimes of the grandfather clock rang out. It was 6 a.m. I had done it. I had conquered all 5 Nights at Freddy's as well as 420 mode without ever using doors. There were moments where it seemed statistically impossible for me to complete this challenge, and I'll be honest, when facing a task that is proven to be virtually impossible, it can be really discouraging. Everyone told me that you literally can't beat FNAF without doors, like it's not possible, and those words were in the back of my mind throughout this entire effort. If I had dwelled on them too much, I might have quit entirely when faced with the daunting reality that was Night 2. However, I kept my cool. I grabbed the shotgun from under the desk and I went to work blasting. Just remember, don't let anyone tell you something is impossible. At least, not before you try doing it with the Doom shotgun at your disposal. With 5 Nights at Freddy's doorless conquered, I set my sights on my next goal, beating 5 Nights at Freddy's 4 without ever using the cameras. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.
Before Chica had killed me, but now I shoot her in the face. I'm gonna blow the pizzeria up, I'm gonna get out of this place. Well, Bonnie tries to run and hide, but it's too late, I'm locked in. With my shotgun, you know I'll pop and drop her.